Hello, everyone. My name is Luca, and I'm the research lead for the Machine Learning Ethics, Transparency, and Accountability team here at Twitter. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the data set that we released for RecSys Challenge, and specifically the privacy consideration that went into design of this data set. However, before we start, I would like to mention that it really takes a village, and I would like to thank all the people you see on the screen that have worked hard and helped us for this. So we'll start with the motivation why we have done this in the first place. I will spend some time describing the data set, and then we'll focus on what privacy consideration we thought in the process. So the first obvious question is why? Why have we decided to organize this challenge? Well, as you know, recommender systems are a very important part of social network. And if you think about that, Twitter can be thought as a giant recommender system. The Twitter timeline, which is the main thing you think when you think about Twitter, is a giant recommender system where we are trying to recommend to you the tweets that are most relevant for you at that given time. Therefore, finding the best recommendation system for us is really vital. Second, we believe that large-scale standard benchmarks can really help advance the field. For example, computer vision really benefit from the release of this massive dataset, ImageNet. You could even argue that computer vision will not be here where it is now if not for this dataset. And so we believe that Twitter has an interesting set of challenges for the research community, and we'd like to provide this dataset in the hope to accelerate research in that direction, in this area. So let's talk a little bit about the dataset. The dataset, each row of the dataset consists of one of 4 engagement types. So, we have an author that created a tweet and a reader that potentially saw this tweet and either engage or not. And there are 4 types of engagements, like, reply, retweet, and quote. And, we have a bunch of features, some for the users, both author and reader, some for the tweet, and some for the engagement. And we collected 200 million samples over a 2-week time frame. We sample for training 160 million the first week, and then 40 million over a subsequent week divided in validation and testing. To our knowledge, this makes the dataset the biggest social network dataset so far. Now, before doing that, we had a lot of thoughts on how we could best preserve the privacy while at the same time creating a dataset that was useful for the research community. And I would like to share with you today some of the consideration we had. So the first thing that is important to understand and to mention is that everything we released was already public. You connect to the API today and get the exact same data. As a matter of fact, you will get more data if you connect to the API than what you released. At the same time, I would like to acknowledge the fact that the API is not free. Even though this data set is technically public, it might not be available for everyone. The other thing with this was to obfuscate IDs of users, tweets, and everything else. We are very aware that this is not an efficient technique at all, especially when the dataset is already public and available somewhere else. We did wanted to still do this step in order to prevent sort of like zero effort misuse of the datasets. In the same fashion, we wanted to have, we wanted people to be able to use sort of all the information and the richness from NLP models, but we didn't want to provide the text as it is, right? Because then you could just copy and paste the text in, your favorite search bar and find the exact tweet. Therefore, what we have done was to replace the text of the tweet with the BERT tokens of the tweet itself. In that way, we thought we had a good compromise between, making sure that people could use pre-trained model, but also sort of like preserving or not making the tweets immediately available for everyone. So an interesting thing is how we create the negative in the data set. So, when you're creating a data set, you need like some positive example and some negative example. Positive example are easier. It just means a user engaged with a tweet. All the engagement type we have considered in this challenge and for this data set are already public. So we know it's public available if someone interacts, likes, replies, retweets some tweet. However, a negative sample, an early example here would mean someone who saw a tweet, yet decided not to engage with that. The information of someone seeing a tweet without engaging is not a public information. Therefore, we try to go around this limitation in the following way. Instead of considering the tweets that were seen but not engaged with, we considered all the potential candidates for this. So we created, for each user, for each reader, we consider all the tweets that were created by the people they follow. We removed the tweets that this person interacted with because these are positive examples. And now we are left with this pool of tweets that the person definitely did not interact with, but we don't know if they interacted because they never seen the tweet or they interacted because they did not like the tweet, yet seen it. And so we just sample from this data set. So to reiterate, the data set has a bunch of tweets, the negative example, of the data set have a bunch of tweets that were not interacted with, but we don't know for a fact if the person saw them or not. And finally, this is a very important point, the data set is kept in sync with Twitter. So if a user deletes their profile, deletes their tweets, or puts their profile as private, everything will be reflected in the data set. I just want to mention like a couple of limitations of this data set. So the first one related to my last point is this data set is actually shrinking because we had like this fixed week that we sampled from, or 2 weeks. And then people keep deleting. It can only go in one direction. You cannot add a tweet for the past. Therefore, our data set over time is shrinking. But I want to mention the data set, it's still there and it's still available for research. So please go and use it. Also, the rate of shrinking, it's slowing down because people are more likely, or I should say less likely, to delete tweets from the past. Another thing, in production, there are other things we're interested in, not just accuracy. Latency is a big one. You want everything to be fast, and in this year, the challenge, latency was not captured. There are more details on the paper we wrote, so please go and check it out. And I'm happy to get any questions on Twitter, I guess.